Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome to Bromley Reformed Synagogue's morning service, to those of you who are in the synagogue with us and to everyone who is watching at home. Our rabbi has unfortunately been delayed this morning, so we have Marilyn, who is going to start the service for us, and Hadassah will be acting as our choir.
Shabbat Shalom. We'll start the service as we're back in our tent, in our building, with Ma Tovu on page 161.
Ma Tovu, Ohana Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael. Ma Tovu, Ohana Leah, Mishkanotayim Rachel.
Please be seated. And on page 163. Elohai neshama shnatata bi tehora, ata vrata, ata yitzarta, ata nefachta bi, v'ata mashamra b'kirbi, v'ata atid litla mimeni lechaye olam. Kol zman shaneshama b'kirbi, muda ani lefanecha, Adonai Elohai ve'Elohei avutai, she'atahu ribon kol ha'ma'asim, moshel b'chol habriot, Adon kol haneshamot, Baruch atah Adonai, hamachazir neshamot lametim. And let's say together the morning blessings. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani b'tselem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shelo asani nochriya. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shelo asani shivcha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa li kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechi matzadik gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Ozei Yisrael b'gebura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Hotei Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanoten le'ayef koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hama'avir sheinai me'enai, u'tumna me'afapai. We should always be in awe of God in private as well as in public. Speak the truth aloud and mean it in our heart. Our living God and God of our ancestors, help us to live according to your teaching and to hold fast to your commands. Let us not come into the power of sin or wrongdoing, temptation or disgrace. Let no evil within us control us and keep us far from bad people and bad company. Help us to hold fast to the good within us and to good deeds, and bend our will and our desires to serve you. Give us today and every day grace, kindness, and mercy in your sight and in the sight of all who regard us, and grant us your love and kindness. Blessed are you, God, inspiring your people Israel with love and kindness. On page 167. Ribon ha'olamim, Adonai ha'adonim, lo ad tzidkoteinu anachnu mapilim tachanunenu lefanecha, ki al rachamecha harabim. Adonai shema'a, Adonai slacha, Adonai hakashiva va'aseh. Ma'anu, mechayenu, mechasdenu, ma tzidkotenu, ma yeshuatenu, ma kochenu, ma gevuratenu, ma noma lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu. Halo hagiborim ka'ain lefanecha, v'anshei Hashem kalo hayu, v'chachamim kivli madar, v'nevonim kivli haskel, ki rov ma'asenu tohu, v'yemei chayenu hevel lefanecha, umotar ha'adam min ha'bahema ayin. כי הכל הווה לבד הנשמה הטהורה, שהיא עתידה ליתן דין וחשבון לפני כבודך. Yet we are your people, the children of your covenant, the children of Abraham whom you loved, giving him your promise on Mount Moriah, the descendants of Isaac bound as an offering on the altar, the congregation of Jacob, your son, your special son, out of your love for him and your delight in him, you changed his name to Israel and Yeshurun. Blessed are you, God. You make your name holy before all. Baruch atah Adonai, Kadesh et shimcha b'rabim. Now we have a study passage. Well, I haven't had time to look through to find anything different, so we'll read the one that's in the Siddur on page 169, and let's say together the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav, la'asok b'divrei Torah. These are the things whose interest we enjoy in this world, while the capital remains for us in the world to come, and this is what they are: respecting one's father and mother, acts of generosity and love, coming early to the house of study morning and evening, giving hospitality to strangers, visiting the sick, assisting the bride, escorting the dead, engaging with prayer, making peace between people, and the study of Torah leads to them all. Our living God, make the words of your Torah sweet in our mouths and in the mouths of your people, the family of Israel. Then we and our descendants and the descendants of your people, the family of Israel, shall all know your name and study your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, God. You teach Torah to your people Israel. Please stand.
Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed.
והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. הושיענו אדוני אלוהינו, להודות לשם קודשך, להשתבח בתהילתך. ברוך אדוני אלוהי ישראל, מן העולם ועד העולם. ואמר כל העם,
Amen. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Kol hanshama tahallel, hallelujah.
please be seated. Blessed be the one at whose word the world exists. Blessed be the one whose word is deed. Blessed be the one whose command stands firm. Blessed be the one who causes creation. Blessed be the one who has mercy on the earth. Blessed be the one who has mercy on creation. Blessed be the one who gives a good reward to the faithful. Blessed be the one who takes away darkness and brings on light. Blessed be the one who exists before time itself and endures for eternity. Blessed be the one in whom there is no fault and no forgiveness, who shows no favor and takes no bribe, whose ways are righteous and all of whose words are love. Blessed be the one who redeems and rescues. Blessed be the one who gives rest to this people Israel on the holy Shabbat day. Blessed be the one, and blessed be God's name, and blessed be the knowledge of God for all eternity. Blessed are you, our living God, sovereign of the universe, great and holy in power, source of mercy, praised by your people, worshipped and glorified by the tongue of all who love and serve you. Therefore we praise you with the psalms of your servant David. With prayers and songs we declare your glory, your greatness, your splendor, and your majesty. We proclaim your name, our sovereign, our God, who alone is the life of all existence, and whose name is worshipped and glorified forever and ever. Blessed are you, God, the sovereign, praised in all worship. And now with Psalm 92? Right, now we're going to join Hadassah on page 176 with the Shabbat song Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, Psalm 92.
טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון וחילו, כי שמחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך ארנן, מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך.
The stupid do not know this, nor can the foolish understand. When the wicked flourish, they are only like grass. When all who do evil spring up, their end is always destruction. Only you are exalted forever eternal. For see your enemies, God, see how your enemies shall perish. All who do evil shall scatter. But you exalted my strength like an ox, anointed me with fresh oil. My eyes saw the fate of my enemies and those who rose up to harm me. My ears have heard their end.
צדיק כתמה יפרח, כארז בלבנון, בלבנון יזכה שתולים בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו, עוד ינובון בסבב, דשנים ורעננים יהיו להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולת בו.
And on-
Say night. I've got a say.
Oh, right. Now I'm on page
179.
179, Esa Enai.
אשא עיני אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם אדוני עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא יישן, שומר ישראל אדוני שומרך, אדוני צלך על יד ימינך, יומם השמש לא יכך וירח בלילה, אדוני ישמוך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם.
Over to Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom and apologies for a delay. When one is facing the problems with the lock at the door and needs to call a locksmith, one wishes one could just open the flap of the tent, just like Abraham and Sarah did. Sadly, it is more complicated when locks are involved, but I'm very happy that I'm able to be here. And I'm also very happy and grateful that Marilyn stepped in and saved the day together, of course, with Hadassah. And we continue our service on page
198.
199, indeed, yes. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen ve'amen. Baruch Adonai Elohim Elohei Yisrael, oseh niflaot levado. Ubaruch Shem kevodo leolam, ve'yimaleh kevodo et kol haaretz. Amen ve'amen.
נשמות כל חי, תברך את שמך. אדוני אלוהינו, ורוח כל בשר תפאר ותרומם. זכרך מלכנו תמיד מן העולם ועד העולם. אתה אל, אתה אל.
ומבלעדיך אין לנו מלך גואל ומושיע, פודה ומציל ועונה ומרחם, בכל עת צרה וצוקה, אין לנו מלך עוזר וסומך זולתך. אלוהיך ראשונים וכאחרונים, אלוה כל בריות, אדון כל תולדות, כמחולל בכל התשבחות, כמנחק עולמו בחסד ובריותיו ברחמים. ואדוני לא ינום ולא יישן, המעורר ישנים וכמקיץ נרדמים, מחיה מתים ורופא חולים, פוקח עיוורים וזוקף כפופים, לך לבדך אנחנו מודים. Continue on page 201, thanking God for all the miracles of every day that we experience each day. On page 204. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, חייך המלך הגדול והקדוש, בשמיים ובארץ. כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, לעולם ועד. שיר ושבחה, קדושה ומלכות, ברכות וחודאות, לשמך הגדול והקדוש. ומעולם ועד עולם אתה אל, ברוך אתה אדוני, בורא כל הנשמות, ריבון כל המעשים, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלכי העולמים. Please stand as we turn to the words of Baruch Hu on page 206. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Chamevorach, Laolam Va'ed. Please be seated. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvore choshech, ose shalom uvore et hakol. Hakol yaducha v'hakol yeshapchucha, v'hakol yomeru ein kadosh ka'Adonai. Chameir la'olam kulo u'leyoshvav, uftuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid, ma'aseh v'reshit. Marabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chokhma asita, malach ha'aretz kinyanecha. חמלך חמרומם לבדו מאז, חמשובח וחמפואר, וחמתנשא ממות עולם. אלוהי עולם ברחמך הרבים, רחם עלינו, אדון עוזנו, צור משגבנו, מגן אישנו, משגב בעדנו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מחרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני, יוצר המאורות. אחווה רבה אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה ויתרה חמלת עלינו. אבינו מלכנו בעבור שמך הגדול, ובעבור אבותינו ואמותינו, שבטחו בך. ותלמדם חוקי חיים, לעשות רצונך בלבב שלם, כן תכוננו. האר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאחווה וליראה את שמך, למען לא נבוש ולא נקלם, כי אל פועל ישועות אתה. ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו מלכנו לשמך הגדול באחווה, להודות לך ולייחדך ולאחווה את שמך. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל, באחווה. Please join me as we proclaim the unity of God and the unity of the Jewish people praising God together through the words of the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, וחיו כדברים כאלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Continue with the second paragraph of the Shema in silence, individually.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
אמת ויציב וקיים ומקובל וטוב כדבר כזה עלינו לעולם ועד. אמת אלוהי עולם מלכנו, צור יעקב מגן אישנו, לדור ודור הוא קיים, ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת. אמת שטחו אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, פודנו ומצילנו, מעולם הוא שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך. עזרת אבותינו ואמותינו, אתה חור מעולם. מגן ומושיע לכם ולבניכם אחריכם בכל דור ודור. אשרי איש שישמע למצוותיך, ותורתך ודברך ישים על ליבו. אמת שאתה הוא ראשון ואתה הוא אחרון, ומבלעדיך אין לנו מלך, גואל ומושיע. ממצרים גאלתנו אדוני אלוהינו, ומבית עבדים פדיתנו. משה ומרים ובני ישראל לך ענו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדע בקודש, נורא תהילו אוסף אליו.
שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת חיים. יחד כולם חודו והמליכו ואמרו.
אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו. קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל Israel. Please join me as we come to our standing prayer to the Amidah on page 222.
Adonai sefatai tifta ufi yagi tehilatecha Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Sarah Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Rivka Elohei Yaakov Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim Konei Hakol Vezocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imahot Umei Goel Livnei B'neihem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Poked Sarah Amen Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei Meitim Atah Rav Lehoshia
משיבך רוח ומורידך גשם.
מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים והופך עולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לו, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה המתים. אמן.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה, ואמר,
קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלך כל הארץ כבודו.
לעומתם ברוך יאמרו,
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו.
ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך, ודברי קודשך כתוב לאמור,
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. הללויה, הללויה, הללויה.
לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה.
ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Moses rejoiced at the gift of his destiny, for you called him a faithful servant. You set a radiance about his head when he stood before you on Mount Sinai, bringing down in his hand the 2 tablets of stone on which is written the Shabbat command, and so it is written in your Torah.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל אות היא לעולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש.
אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, רצנה ומנוחתנו, קדשנו ומצוותיך, שים חלקנו ותורתך, סבנו מטובך שמח נפשנו וישועתך, ותחר ליבנו לעובדך באמת. וחנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באחווה וברצון, שבת קודשך, וינוחו בה כל ישראל מקדשי שמך. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. רצה אדוני אלוהינו בעמך ישראל ולתפילתם שאה, וברחמך הרבים תחפוץ בנו ותשרה שכינתך על ציון. On page 231. ותחזינה עינינו ושובך לציון ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון. מודים אנחנו לך שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו לעולם ועד. צורנו צור חיינו מגן אישנו אתה הוא. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור נודה לך ונספר תחילתך, על חיינו המסורים בידיך, ועל נשמותינו הפקודות לך, ועל ניסך שבכל יום עמנו, ועל נפלאותיך וטובותיך שבכל עת ערב ובוקר וצהריים. חטוף כי לא חלו רחמך, חמרחם כי לא תמו חסדיך, כי מעולם קיווינו לך. ועל כולם יתברך ויתרומם ויתנשא תמיד שמך מלכנו לעולם ועד. וכל חכאים יודוך סלע, ויחללו ויברכו את שמך הגדול באמת. חל ישועתנו ועזרתנו סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, חטוף שמך ולך נאה להודות. Grant us peace, goodness and blessing, life, grace and kindness, justice and mercy. Source of our life, bless us all together with the light of your presence. For in the light of your presence, you give us, our living God, law and life, love and kindness, justice and mercy, blessing and peace. And in your eyes it is good to bless your people Israel with the strength to make peace. Baruch atah Adonai, chamavarech et amo Israel, bashalom. We pause for a moment of silent meditation, and then we unite our voices in the prayer that is the prerequisite of them all, the prayer for peace.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה
We have now come to the Torah service, and we will embark on the journey of the Torah service with the words of Ein Kamocha on page 236.
Ein kamocha Elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'asecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim u'memshaltecha v'chol dor vador Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed Adonai os le'amo yiten Adonai yevarech et amo b'shalom Avarachamim etiva v'ratzonacha etzion Kivacha lavavatachnu melech Aaron v'nisa Adon olamim Vayivin Aaron vayomer Moshe Kuma Adonai vayafutzu oivecha vayanusu nesanecha mipanecha Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah udavar Adonai mirushalayim
Baruch Shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kdushato.
Baruch Shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kdushato.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlu la'Adonai iti uneromema shemo yachdav.
Lecha Adonai Hagdula V'Hagdura V'Tiferet HaNetzach Kihon HaShamayim u'Haaretz Lecha Adonai HaMamlacha HaMitnaseh Lechol HaRosh Ramamo Adonai Eloheinu Shtachavu L'Adon Raglav Kadosh Hu Ramamo Adonai Eloheinu Yishtachavu L'Hakadshu Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
Ein kadosh k'Adonai ki ein biltecha ve'ein tzur k'Eloheinu ki mi Eloah mi baladei Adonai umitzur zulati Eloheinu Torah tziva lanu Moshe morsha k'chilat Yaakov.
עץ חיים היא, למה חזיקים בה, וטוב לכך מאושר. דרכך דרכי נועם, וכל נתיבותיך שלום.
שלום רב לאוחבי תורתך, ואין למו מכשול. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו ושלום. כי שם אדוני אקרא, חוו גודל לאלוהינו.
אותנו לאלוהים, אותנו חוות לתורה. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל, תורה ציווה לנו משה לראשי קהילת יעקב, האל תורמים דרכו אמרת אדוני שרופה, מגנו לכל העושים לו.
שכוח.
We have come to the Torah reading, and our reading today comes from the portion Vayera, from the very beginning of the portion. It is the story of an encounter of Abraham and Sarah with, well, this is the question, with whom? With three messengers, with three divine messengers, or two divine messengers and God's self? Or maybe with just people sent on their way to prove their hospitality, and after they have proven how hospitable they are, how open to receiving strangers they are, we have this moment of transformation into divine messengers. It is midrashic, of course, but I can't help but think that it is one of the tests that Abraham and Sarah encounter on the way. The test that they pass with flying colors, or should I say, with a full table set to welcome their guests. We'll explore this portion more in my sermon, but now I would like to ask Marilyn to come up to the other smaller pulpit and lead us in first reading the translation and then blessing the scroll.
You don't need to see me. This is from Genesis chapter 18, verses 1 to 19. And the Eternal appeared to him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat at the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself to the ground. And he said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in your sight, pass not away, I beseech you, from your servant. Let a little water, I beseech you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourself under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and you comfort your hearts. After that you shall pass on, seeing that you come to your servant. And they said, So do as you have said. And Abraham hurried to the tent to Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, and fetched a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man, and he hurried to prepare it. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had prepared, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they ate. And they said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And he said, "Behold, in the tent." And he said, "I will certainly return to you at this season. And lo, Sarah, your wife, shall have a son." And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well advanced in age, and it had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. And therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, "After I grow old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord, being old also?" And the Eternal said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh, saying, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I'm old?' Is anything too hard for the Eternal? At the time appointed, I will return to you at this season, and Sarah shall have a son." Then Sarah denied, saying, "I laughed not," for she was afraid. And he said, "No, you did laugh." And the men rose up from there and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Eternal said, "Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? For I know him, and he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Eternal, and do justice and judgment, that the Eternal may bring upon Abraham that which has spoken of him."
And I will call Marilyn with her Hebrew name to bless the scroll. Ta'amot, ta'amot, Mashabat Yuval veMiriam, Likro b'Torah,
Baruch Adonai HaMvorach.
Adonai Hamevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Vorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher achabarnu kol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
וירא אליו אדוני באלוני ממרא, וכו ישב פתח האוכל כחום כיום. וישא עיניו ויער, והנה 3 אנשים ניצבים עליו. ויער ורוץ לקרותם מפתח האוכל, וישתחו ארצה. ויאמר, אדוני אם נא מצאתי חן בעיניך, אל נא תעבור מעל עבדיך, ייקח נא מעט מים ורחצו רגליכם, והישענו תחת העץ. ואקחה פת לחם, וסעדו לבכם אחר תעבורו, כי על כן עברתם על עבדיכם. ויאמרו, כן תעשה, כאשר דיברת. וימכר אברהם האוכלה אל שרה, ויאמר, מחרי 3 שאים קמח סולת לושי, ועשי עוגות. ואל הבקר רץ אברהם, ויקח בן בקר רך וטוב, ויתן אל הנער, וימכר לעשות אותו. ויקח חמאה וחלב, ובין הבקר אשר עשה, ויתן לפניכם, והוא עומד עליכם תחת העץ, ויאכלו. ויאמרו אליו, איה שרה אשתך? ויאמר, הנה באוכל. ויאמר, שוב אשוב אליך כעת חיה, והנה בן לשרה אשתך. ושרה שומעת פתח האוכל, וכו אחריו. ואברהם ושרה, זקנים באים בימים, חדל להיות לשרה, אורח כנשים. ותצחק שרה בקרבה לאמור, אחרי ולותי חייתה לי עדנה, ואדוני זקן. ויאמר אדוני אל אברהם, למה זה צחקה שרה לאמור, כאף אמנם אלד ואני זקנתי? היפלא מאדוני דבר למועד, אשוב אליך כעת חיה, ולשרה בן. ותכחש שרה לאמור, לא צחקתי כי יראה, ויאמר לא כי צחקת. ויקומו משם האנשים, והשקיפו על פני סדום, ואברהם הלך עמם לשלחם. ואדוני אמר, חסה אני מאברהם אשר אני עושה, ואברהם חיו יהיה לגוי גדול ועצום, ונברכו בו כל גויי הארץ. כי ידעתיו למען אשר יצווה את בניו ואת ביתו אחריו. ושמרו דרך אדוני לעשות צדקה ומשפט, למען חבי אדוני על אברהם את אשר דיבר עליו.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
זאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני ישראל, בי אדוני ביד משה. We continue with our Torah reading.
Shabbat Shalom. This week's Haftorah comes from Kings, Book 2, Chapter 4, verses 8 to 37. It tells the story, or part of the story, of Elisha, and the connection with the Torah portion is about fertility. This case, it's taking place in Shunem in northern Israel, close to Afula, and about 26 miles from Mount Carmel and Haifa. I'll start with the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu asher bacha b'nviyin tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim ba'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'v'Moshe avda u'v'Yisrael ama u'v'nvieh ha'emet v'tzedek. And it happened one day that Elisha passed to Shunem, where there was a wealthy woman, and she urged him to eat bread. And so it was that whenever he passed by, he turned in there to eat bread. And she said to her husband, "Behold now, I perceive that this is a holy man of God, who passed by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I beg you, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a lampstand, and it shall be, when he comes to us, that he shall turn in there." And it happened one day that he came there, and he turned into the chamber and lay there. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, "Call this Shunammite." And when he called her, she stood before him, and he said to him, "Say now to her, behold, you have been careful to take all this trouble for me. What is there to be done for you? Would you be spoken for to the king or to the captain of the army?" And she answered, "I live among my own people." And he said, "What then is to be done for her?" And Gehazi answered, "Truly, she has no child, and her husband is old." And he said, "Call her." And when he called her, she stood in the door. And he said, "About this season, in the coming year, you shall embrace a son." And she said, "No, my lord, you, man of God, do not lie to your maidservant." And the woman conceived and bore a son, and at that season that Elisha had said to her in the following year. And when the child was grown, he fell one day when he went out to his father to the reapers. And he said to his father, my head, my head." And he said to a lad, "Carry him to his mother." And when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knee till noon, and then died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, and closed the door upon him, and went out. And she called to her husband and said, "Send me, I beg you, one of the young men and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of God and come again." And he said, "Why will you go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath." And she said, "It shall be well." Then she saddled an ass and said to her servant, "Drive and go forward. Do not slacken the pace unless I bid you." And she went and came to the man of God to Mount Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of God saw her far away, that he said to Gehazi, his servant, "Behold, yonder is the Shunammite. Run now, I beg you, to meet her, and say to her, 'Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child?' And she answered, 'It is well.' And when she came to the man of God to the hill, she caught him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of God said, 'Let her alone, for her soul is grieved inside her, and the Eternal hid it from me, and did not tell me.' Then she said, 'Did I ask my Lord for a son? Did I not say, do not deceive me?' Then he said to Gehazi, 'Gird up your loins and take my staff in your hand, and go your way. If you meet any man, greet him not, and if any greets you, do not answer him back. Lay my staff upon the face of the child.' And the mother of the child said, 'As the Eternal lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you.' And he arose and followed her. And Gehazi passed on before them and laid the staff upon the face of the child. But there was neither voice nor sound. Therefore he went back to meet him and told him, saying, 'The child is not awakening.' And when Elisha came to the house, behold, the child was dead and laid upon the bed. He went in therefore and closed the door upon the two of them and prayed to the Eternal. And he went up and lay upon the child and put his mouth upon his mouth, his eyes upon his eyes, his hands upon his hands, and he stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi and said, 'Call this Shunammite,' and he called her. And she came to him. He said, 'Take up your son.' Then she went in and fell at his feet and bowed to the ground and took up her son and went out." Al ha-Torah v'al ha'avodah v'al hanaviyim v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh shenatan lanu Adonai Eloheinu l'kedusha v'lemenucha l'kavod u'l'tifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim la u'mavarachim ata yitvarach shimha b'fi kol chai tamid li'alam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. We continue with our prayers of our community. Yes, I can do it. You can find them on page 246. Please stand. Our God, whose dominion is everlasting, we ask you to bless our sovereign lady, Queen Elizabeth, and to guide the government of this country. Help us to be good citizens, working together for justice and peace at home and abroad. Bless this holy community and all holy communities, and support the life and work of all who labor for their welfare. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessing on the state of Israel and all who live there. Give wisdom and understanding to its leaders, and friendship and compassion to the people, so that there may be lasting peace on its borders and in all its homes. Soon may your promise be fulfilled. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, udevar Adonai mi Yerushalayim. For Torah shall come out of Zion, and the word of God from Jerusalem. We ask you to listen to our prayers and look on us kindly, supporting those among us who are troubled, consoling the bereaved, sending relief to those in pain or anxiety. As you blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and our mothers Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless our own congregation, all other congregations gathered in prayer, and everyone who responds to the needs of the community. May such be the divine will, and let us say,
Amen.
We come towards the end of our Torah service with the words of Shochen Adonai on page 257. שכון אדוני בתוך עמך, ותנוח רוחך בבית תפילתך, כי כל פה וכל לשון ייתנו חוד וחדר למלכותך, כי לקח טוב נתתי לכם, תורתי אל תעזובו.
השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש ימינו כקדם חדש ימינו
לדור ודור נגיד גודלך. From generation to generation shall we pronounce your greatness. Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Or, in Hebrew, ואברהם חיו יהיה לגוי גדול ועצום, ונברכו בו כל גויי הארץ. Our parasha, our reading today, starts just after God promised the first Jews, the founders of our tradition, that they're going to be numerous. As numerous, we learn, as the sand on the shore of the sea, as numerous as the stars of heaven, powerful and so influential that all the families, all the nations of the world will be blessed through them. And yet we need to remember that it is the time that more than 20 years have passed since they are residing in the land of Canaan. And no sign of an heir, no sign of an offspring to have this promise fulfilled. In this time, we see Abraham having a child with Hagar. We see the devastating impact that it has on Sarah's mental health. She is jealous, then despondent, then angry, then confrontational. She asks Abraham to choose between her and her maidservant. Grudgingly, Abraham chooses Sarah, sends pregnant Hagar into the desert. Only divine intervention is able to bring Hagar, pregnant Hagar, back. All this sets the stage for our parasha, or rather for the chapter that precedes our parasha. We have seen a couple who are promised multiple times that they're going to have a child. He has a child, but she doesn't. It has, as I mentioned, a huge impact on their relationship. When Abraham finds out, just before our parasha starts, that this time he's going to have a child, he's going to be finally a father, he laughs and he hopes that this blessing that will be bestowed on this descendant will be bestowed on Ishmael too. It shows that he is not entirely sure. And yet, he circumcises himself and his entire household, pardon the pun, every member of his household is circumcised. And so they are where our parasha starts, recovering, according to the Midrash, from this covenant of circumcision, and still no heir in sight. Why does our tradition do it to the characters? Why do Abraham and Sarah, or Abram and Sarai, in the beginning of their fertility journey, go through all of this? The answer is, well, because narratively, the birth of a child that is so long awaited makes it more dependent on divine grace. But there is yet another aspect of it, aspect that we cannot overlook when we think about the way in which we think about the continuity of our community. It is the fear of the small people. It is the desire of a people who are small numerically to be great. We see in the history of Abraham and Sarai, Abraham and Sarah, multiple times when bigger numbers would have come in handy. When they find themselves in Egypt and she needs to pretend to be Abram's sister, high numbers would have come in handy. It would have been good to be a nation that doesn't have to resort to such ruses to protect themselves. When Lot becomes a prisoner in the war of 9 kings, Abram is only able to free him through a smart military maneuver. He is a smart commander, yes, but higher numbers would have been useful. It would have been easier to free Lot by might and not by spirit, to paraphrase Prophet Zechariah. And so this concern of a small people who want to have higher numbers is enshrined, is immortalized in the story of Abraham and Sarah. And so it lives in the story and becomes a paradigm, a blueprint of how we think, of how we talk about Jewish continuity. Abraham and Sarah get their happy ending, but before they do, they pay a price of years of trying to conceive, of marital conflicts, of their marriage falling apart effectively when they are emotionally more and more distant from each other. We, after the covenant of circumcision, find the reference to Abraham telling everyone in their household that they need to get circumcised. But we never learn about him actually explaining to Sarah what is going on and what is to be expected. That is simply missing. It might be that Torah didn't need to provide us with this bit of information, that it would have been obvious that it was explained to Sarah why everyone gets circumcised. But we don't know it, and when we find her laughing in this portion in the tent, it seems like Abraham hasn't communicated with her enough. It seems like she has not been a part of this conversation, divine conversation with him before. She's not a part of this conversation either in this portion. She listens behind the flap of the tent. She listens hidden in the tent. And then she laughs. Our Mefarshim, our commentators tell us that she laughs in her mind, and divine messengers are able to pick it up. Why does she laugh? She laughs, perhaps, because she is tired. She's tired of not being a part of the conversation and yet being the subject of the conversation. She's tired of the comments, oh, she doesn't have a baby. She's tired of the history of people assuming when she was younger that she would have a baby soon. She's tired of the burden put on her by the expectation to be the mother of many, to ensure Jewish continuity. We don't know how, in her situation, she could have been helped, how one could have taken off this pressure on her in this time when really the future of the Jewish people depended on her. But what we do know is that the heritage of wanting to be a larger nation, of making assumptions about a couple wanting to have kids, making assumptions about a couple being on the way to have kids, is very much a part of the way in which we connect with each other as a Jewish community. The way forward in this position, the way forward in this situation, is to think of ways to be there for women and men who are struggling with infertility, and not come as messengers with promises and assurances that they don't believe in anymore. Not come with words of empty comfort. Not come with assumptions that one knows what is going on in the household and what this couple needs. Real encounter in a situation like this starts from sitting together and listening to this person, listening to this couple, and knowing what is so objectionable to them that, confronted with it happening again and again, all they want to do is to laugh bitterly. It is on us. It is in our hands to be able to create a way in which we talk about having children, about continuity, that doesn't make people hide themselves in a tent, that doesn't make them pent up their emotions, that doesn't make them laugh in desperation and misunderstanding. May we have the courage, strength, and sensitivity to build a community where the visitors and the conversations they bring nourish and not deplete, strengthen and support and contribute to us being a Goy Gadol, because Goy Gadol and Atzum is not just about numbers. It is about the way in which we support those who struggle to increase these numbers. Shabbat Shalom. And we continue our service with the words of Ein Keloheinu on page 306.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Adonenu, Mi Malkeinu, Mi Moshienu. Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
Please stand as we turn to the words of Aleinu on page 310. עלינו לשבח לאדונך הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שכונות השמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגופי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו, אין עוד. אמת מלכנו, אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו. ידעת היום, השבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. We read the second paragraph of Aleinu individually, adding our own hopes for the future of the world. ונאמר וחיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, וביום חכו יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. On this Shabbat, as our work is ended, and we enjoy a brief time of rest, we think of those whose life's work is done and have gone to their eternal rest. We think especially now of those who died at this time in years past. We face the mysteries of life and death and eternal life. We put our trust in God, whom we have never trusted enough. Harachaman, the merciful one, may we inherit a day that shall be holy as Shabbat and rest in life everlasting. We pray for the coming of God's kingdom in the words of the Kaddish. And as we say the words of the Kaddish, we remember in the period of Shloshim, Pauline Jeffrey, a beloved member of our community, and David Franklin, father of Judith French, and grandfather of Joe and Josh Parks. On this Shabbat, Vayera, we mark the yortzites of Miriam Harris, grandmother of Graham Harris, of Rosina Branch, mother of Gloria Hayden, of Rolf Richard Spiegel, father of Amanda O'Donnell, of Daniel Pressman, son of Elkin Pressman, of Bertha Schwartz, wife of Monty Schwartz and mother of Elka Carr, of Jack Stern, father of Alan Stern, and of Frances Mary Fenley, mother of Sheila Zerichan. Realizing that we are all a community of mourners and comforters, we say Kaddish together in solidarity with the mourners. Please say with me and with the mourners on page 316. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ba'alma tivrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayei v'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv, v'yimru amen. Yechesh shmei Rabbah mevarach la'olam ulmei al hayam. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yit'alei v'yithalal shemei dekudshah b'richu. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דיאמירן ועלמה, ואמרו אמן. יחשלם הרבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל העולם, ואמרו אמן.
Say shalom bimromav, or yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen.
Before we come to our announcements, we wish all those who mark their period of Shloshim or Yortzites a long life and many happy memories of their loved ones.
Shabbat Shalom, and thank you to Rabbi Matti and particularly to Marilyn, who stepped in for us at the beginning, to Hadassah and to John, who's been doing the streaming. The notices are for those of you who are here on the back of the sheet. There's no Hader, it's half term for the next 2 weeks, and a couple of items during the week. One of them is not on the sheet actually. In aid of Pancreatic Cancer UK, our member Judith French is going to sing love songs for Roger. She's going to sing 25 love songs in memory of her husband, Roger, who died a short while ago, on what would have been their 25th anniversary. Details are in Elite, and donations are welcome towards pancreatic cancer. Social Centre meets again on Wednesday from 10:30 to 2 o'clock. Further details in Elite and Highlight possibly. Thursday, the 28th of October, the Zionist Federation will mark 104 years since the Balfour Declaration with an online lecture. Further details of the speaker and registration again in Elite. There are still a possibility to donate to Macmillan Cancer until the end of this month. And I'm not sure whether the Conedry appeal is still continuing, but that you would need to check with the office. A Hader food drive, as part of the national countdown to Mitzvah Day, the shul is collecting for food banks. Please place donations in the tzedakah box near the front door. The Kiddush Rota, I think Janvier is still hoping for volunteers to organise the Kiddush Rota. And also security on Shabbat, please contact John Posner if you can help there. Next Shabbat will be Rabbi Matti's final Shabbat with us. So do come along and wish him well for the future. Thank you very much. And there will be Kiddush downstairs, if I can get down there to do it. Thank you.
And we conclude our service with Adon Olam, and then, as Barbara mentioned, we move to a Kiddush downstairs. Please join Hadassah on page 320.
Adon Olam Asher Malach B'Terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'et Naso Kachefso Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד ואין שני להמשיך לו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצוחב לי ביום צרה והוא ניסי ומנוסי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו הפקיד רוחי בעת אישן והעירה ועם רוחי גבייתי אדוני לי ולא אירא.
As Bromley Reformed Synagogue, we wish you Shabbat Shalom, a restful weekend, a restful half term, and a good week ahead. Please stay with us.